What would you eat if it were your last dinner? Today I'll talk about what legendary people indulged in before they departed this world. From Princess Diana to Yuri Gagarin, from potato pancakes to a whole bunch of eggs. And in the end, I'll tell you about Steve Jobs' strange diet, which many doctors believe ultimately contributed to his demise, worsening his illness. And I'll start with a true global legend. In the 1960s, John Lennon took his place among the 4 most famous musicians on the planet, becoming the leading voice and songwriter in the legendary band The Beatles, which conquered the music world. When the group disbanded in 1970, Lennon didn't stop and continued to delight fans with hits like Imagine and Give Peace a Chance, starting his successful solo career. In the mid-70s, he decided to take a break from music to spend time with his family and raise his son Sean. On December 8, 1980, starting the day with Eggs Benedict at a cozy cafe near his home, and continuing with a photo shoot with Rolling Stone magazine and a radio interview where he joyfully talked about his new album, which had already gone gold. Lennon had no idea of the impending tragedy. In the evening, returning home, his life was cut short by Mark Chapman, who shot the musician at the entrance to his home. On April 12, 1961, at 9:07 a.m. at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, the conquest of space by man began. The launch of the Vostok spacecraft, with the first cosmonaut on board, was given. Yuri Gagarin, uttering his famous words, "Let's go!" embarked on a historic flight that lasted 108 minutes. The flight was accompanied by difficulties. Malfunctions in the braking system caused the spacecraft to somersault at the end of the mission, and after ejection, Gagarin almost suffocated due to a delay in opening the air valve in his spacesuit. Despite subsequent worldwide fame, Gagarin dreamed of returning to his flying career and possibly going into space again. He even began training for a new mission while working as a test pilot. But fate decreed otherwise. On March 27, 1968, he had lunch in the canteen, choosing cabbage soup and meatballs with potatoes, before embarking on his final flight. In the early 90s, Kurt Cobain, the leader of the Nirvana band from Washington, became an icon of rock music for several generations ahead. Their hits blended punk metal with lyrical texts, setting the tone for guitar music for the decade. In the Cactus restaurant chain in Madison Park, known in Seattle, Cobain spent his last evening. On April 3, 1994, despite the chill, he and his friends dined outside, ordering dessert with banana and rum, before heading to see the movie Piano. And then, 5 days later, on April 8th, Cobain's body was found in his home. According to Rolling Stone magazine, a shotgun and a suicide note were found next to him. The autopsy report showed heroin and Valium in his blood, and remnants of beer in his stomach, and nothing else. Cobain passed away a few days before his discovery. He was only 27 years old. And since I've started talking about great musicians, I simply must tell you about Jimi Hendrix. He blended blues and rock with unique guitar technique. This led to the creation of an innovative and psychedelic sound that captured the hearts of the whole world. And his performance at Woodstock, where he set his guitar on fire, became legendary. Hendrix's last hours were eventful. After a party thrown by Michael Nesmith of the Monkees in London, where he drank a lot of red wine, Hendrix returned to his room at the Samarkand Hotel, where he was staying with Monica Denneman, his alleged fiancée. There he ate a tuna sandwich and took 9 sleeping pills, which far exceeded the norm. After a long conversation with Monica, Hendrix fell asleep, but in the morning he was found lifeless. An attempt by his body to rid itself of the overdose through vomiting led to the musician's tragic death from suffocation. He was also only 27 years old. Jesse Dwayne Onfroy, widely known as XXXtentacion, was born into a poor family in Plantation, Florida. Music entered Onfroy's life from an early age, starting with participation in the church choir, from which he was expelled for fighting. In his teenage years, he tried his hand at playing piano and guitar, becoming interested in various musical genres. Despite the difficulties Onfroy faced, including criminal cases and conflicts, his musical creativity remained sincere and original. XXXtentacion's tragic death occurred on June 18, 2018, when he was shot outside a motorcycle dealership in South Florida. He was only 20 years old. Shortly before this, the rapper had only eaten shrimp with lemon juice. It's hard to call it a full-last dinner. Elvis Presley, dubbed the king of rock and roll, became a symbol of musical revolution, stunning the world with his songs and unique style. By the 1970s, he had already become a legend, regularly hosting magnificent shows in Las Vegas and residing in his famous mansion Graceland in Memphis. By the summer of 1977, Presley had seriously gained weight, reaching 260 pounds. A strict diet was prescribed to him before the upcoming tour. However, his love for sweets, especially ice cream with hot fudge, did not diminish. How I understand him. And on August 16th, he indulged in this sweet weakness again, although the staff limited his portion. That night, unable to sleep and suffering from digestive problems, Elvis went to the bathroom with a book, hoping to relax. There, he suffered a heart attack. His companion, Ginger Alden, found him unconscious on the floor. Despite the efforts of doctors to save him in the hospital, Elvis Presley was pronounced dead at the age of 42, leaving behind a legacy that continues to live on to this day. In 1969, the world first heard the name Michael Jackson, when the 11-year-old boy became the face of the Jackson 5 group, going from a child star to a soloist. By the end of the 1970s, Jackson was already at the top of the musical Olympus, and his 1982 album Thriller solidified his status as the world's most popular pop performer. On June 24, 2009, on the eve of a concert, Jackson asked his chef to prepare him a light but nutritious meal. The menu included seared ahi tuna, fresh salad, and orange and carrot juice drinks. After a stressful day, Jackson returned home and faced a new problem: insomnia. His doctor, Conrad Murray, tried to help him sleep by administering powerful drugs. The next morning, on June 25th, despite all efforts, Jackson could not fall asleep, and Murray decided to administer propofol, a powerful anesthetic. Just 2 minutes after the drug was administered, Jackson stopped breathing. Despite the attempts of the doctor, paramedics, and staff at the University of California Medical Center, he could not be revived. Did you know that Marilyn Monroe is just a pseudonym? And what's her real name? Norma Jean Mortensen was born on June 1, 1926, in Los Angeles. She faced life difficulties from an early age. Forced to spend her childhood in a shelter due to her mother's financial problems, Norma found salvation in the world of art. In 1944, she began her modeling career and soon changed her name to Marilyn Monroe, under which she entered the history of cinema. Monroe was not just an actress. She became a true sex symbol of her time, winning the hearts of millions. However, behind the bright image lay personal dramas. Depression, health issues, and failures in her personal life plagued her throughout her life. The culmination of her tragic fate was her premature death in 1962 from a drug overdose. As the autopsy showed, the girl hadn't eaten much for several days, with only alcohol remnants in her stomach, her favorite Prosecco. And where would we be without old Freddie? In the 70s and 80s, the Queen band topped the world music charts, attracting millions of fans to their concerts. The uniqueness of the band's sound was ensured by Freddie Mercury's unique voice, capable of skillfully performing both emotional ballads and fiery rock hits. What's his Bohemian Rhapsody worth? But on November 23, 1991, the world was shocked by the news from Freddie Mercury himself. Through a press release, he announced that he was suffering from AIDS and was in the final stage of the disease. Unexpected, right? Just a day after this statement, Freddie Mercury passed away. In his final hours, lying on his deathbed, he tried to enjoy the taste of mango served by his bed partner Jim Hutton. But he nearly choked due to swallowing difficulties. Freddie Mercury left this world at the age of 45, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire even today. Heath Ledger, the best Joker in the Batman universe, passed away on January 22, 2008, at the young age of 28. The cause of his death was intoxication caused by excessive consumption of sleeping pills combined with antidepressants. According to the autopsy, his death was due to accidental overdose of prescription drugs. In the last years of his life, Ledger led a hectic lifestyle and suffered from insomnia, for which he took medication. There are speculations about suicide. However, close friends and relatives of the actor insist that Heath was full of plans for the future and did not intend to leave this world voluntarily. Before his death, he managed to have dinner with risotto with sausages, after which he tried to go to sleep. But let's take a little break from rock music, and I'll tell you about a true legend of old school rap. September 7th, 1996 became a fateful day for the world of rap music. Tupac Shakur was seriously wounded in a shooting and died a few days later. Tupac and Suge Knight went to Mike Tyson's boxing match at the MGM Grand, where they got into a fight with Orlando Anderson from a rival gang. Later, on the way to the club, the car in which Tupac and Knight were traveling was shot at from a Cadillac. On that day, the legendary hip-hop artist only had macaroni and cheese and serving of chicken drumsticks for dinner. Hardly the best farewell dinner. And where would we be without the darling of all England? On the night of her death, Princess Diana was in Paris, with her companion Doe Defied. After dinner at the Ritz Hotel restaurant, where she ordered Dover sole, vegetable tempura, and mushroom and asparagus omelette, Diana fell victim to a car accident. Darren McGrady, former royal chef, shared that such dishes were typical of Diana's diet. She valued simplicity and health in food, often opting for low-fat dishes. January 26, 2020 marked the last day in the life of the famous basketball player Kobe Bryant. In the morning, he attended a church service, then sent a message to Shaquille O'Neal and called LeBron James to congratulate him on achieving a new record. Then Kobe, along with his daughter Gianna and several other passengers, took a helicopter to basketball competitions. During the flight, Bryant was in communication, including writing about hopes for a scholarship for Alexi Altobelli. However, after 9:30, communication was lost, and soon it became known about the helicopter crash, which claimed the lives of all on board. The only thing the legendary basketball player had in the morning was a protein shake. Oh boy. Lil Peep, whose real name was Gustav R., was known for his open admission of drug use and struggle with depression, which he often talked about in his songs and on social media. He used various substances, including Xanax, and considered marijuana his depression remedy. His life was cut short before a concert in Tucson, Arizona, where he presumably took a fatal dose of counterfeit Xanax laced with fentanyl. Gustav was quite ascetic in his food choices, and that day he only had breakfast at a local diner with 2 fried eggs, bacon, and hash browns. At the age of 75, death caught up with the legendary Muhammad Ali at the Phoenix Hospital, where he was undergoing treatment for Parkinson's disease. A few days before his death, he was hospitalized with lung problems, and soon his condition deteriorated sharply. Legendary boxer Muhammad Ali died of septic shock, as announced by his family representatives. According to Ali's daughter, Hannah, his heart continued to beat for another 30 minutes after other organs stopped functioning. She described this fact as evidence of her father's extraordinary spirit and willpower. Sounds incredible. But even more amazing is the fact that for decades, Muhammad ate 6 eggs at a time every morning.
Здорово, бандиты.
The tragedy in the Carmody Gorge, which occurred just over 20 years ago, claimed the lives of 125 people, including actor Sergei Bodrov Jr. Attempts to find those responsible for the tragedy encompassed various versions, including even a possible curse. However, rescuers and scientists relied on scientific data pointing to natural causes of the catastrophe, such as glacier pulsation and global warming, which could have triggered the avalanche. The search operation lasted for about a year and a half, but many relatives still cannot come to terms with the loss of their loved ones. The only thing that is known for sure is that the group had immersion heaters with stew and a lot of lard with salted herring. Most likely this was the last meal Sergei Bodrov had time to eat. Steve Jobs is my idol, a legend in the world of technology. He was used to following an unusual diet since his college years, based on the principles described in Francis Moore Lapay's book. He also practiced fasting periods. In 2003, during a medical examination, Jobs was diagnosed with a rare form of pancreatic cancer. Contrary to doctors' recommendations to undergo surgery immediately, he chose alternative treatment methods, including a diet based on fruit juices and carrots. The operation was performed only 5 years after the diagnosis. Jobs' wife, Laureen Powell, tried to make changes to his diet by adding protein, which had been missing from his diet for years. But Steve was adamant. He passed away on October 5, 2011, at his home in California due to complications related to his illness, which eventually led to respiratory arrest. Dr. Ramzi Amri stated that Jobs' decision to prefer alternative treatment was the cause of his premature death. As you can see, you are what you eat. Stars don't always dine on fancy dishes alone. And if you're interested in more, but with more extravagant stars, subscribe to the channel and give a thumbs up. See you soon!